Well, welcome today. We would love to have you come and sit down as we get started for today, our Hope for Mental Health community. I also want to welcome our online community as well. We will be doing this on Facebook Live. And just so you know, you'll see a camera in the back. And this camera is just on the stage only. And so we do respect your privacy and confidentiality here in the audience in tent 3. The only reason we wanted to Facebook Live this event is because we want others online to be able to benefit from some of the things that we'll be talking about today. Our vision for the Hope for Mental Health community is real simple. Our vision is that we are a place to belong, we're a place for hope, and we're also a place to learn here. And this is how we'll learn. We'll learn in 3 ways. We will learn spiritually. We'll learn and grow spiritually. We'll also learn the prevailing research or best practices in the behavioral and mental health fields. And we will also learn from each other. Some of the questions we want to ask during our community that we attempt as we come together is, what are my options? What do I need to know? How do I get care? What's keeping me from getting care? All of these are great questions, and that's for some of you. We recognize that you're here today with some of those questions. But we hope that you're new here, that you begin to just feel comfortable. This is a safe place. This is a place where we can come together and let our hair down. We're all in this together as a community here at Saddleback Church. Just a few announcements. We will be having our Hope for Mental Health community every 4th Sunday of the month. However, this December, we are going to be having it on December 12th, and we actually will be having a Christmas celebration. This Christmas celebration will be here in tent 3 on December 12th at 6:30. All are welcome. We are going to be having dinner. We will be worshiping together, and we will also have a wonderful message that we'll be sharing. If you don't know about this online, we'll be posting this through our email and also through our social media, so be sure to register when you see that come out. Also for January with our community, we will be meeting on January 27th. And on that day, we have some very special guests that will be joining us. That will be Kay and Mylan Yurkovich. And they wrote the book, How We Love. They're going to come and teach us on conflict and relationships. And they're wonderful people. They're friends of Saddleback Church. And they're our Christian licensed therapists. Also, if you'd like to volunteer either online or today, contact Kathleen Jones here on staff. You could reach her at mentalhealth@saddleback.com, or you can go to the resource table in the back and sign up. We would love to have you come and serve as well. Also, I'd love to introduce you to our pastoral care team. That's myself and Christina Voline, who's a licensed therapist, Liz Puffer and Kathleen. And if you have any pastoral care needs, if you need prayer, if you'd like some information, if you'd like a consultation and meet with myself or our staff, or you just need some support, we're here for you as a church. We're here for you as a community. We want to sit down with you and take some time to discuss what's going on in your life. And it's a safe place where we can love. We would love to help answer some of those questions that I shared earlier. If you're here today and you need some prayer, we would love to pray with you. We actually have a prayer table in the back. We have people with designated lanyards that they're wearing that say prayer team. Feel free to come at any time, and as well after our time together, we will be available for prayer as well. We also have very common resources here at Saddleback Church that we've collected throughout the months and years. And we have a book and a resource table here in tent 3 at the back. And we have both Saddleback resources, and we also have community-based resources. If you're looking for resources, feel free to go back to our table that says Hope for Mental Health. And some of the most commonly asked questions or books that are required, as we've seen in ministry, the books that are requested, we have those available for you to purchase or take pictures of, and you can purchase on your own later on today. Also, during our time together, it's very natural that we have questions. We have questions that come up during the education proponent. We have questions that come up maybe for a speaker or for a testimony. And so at your table, we have 3x5 cards. If at any point you have a question, please, please, please write your question down. And towards the end, they will be collected, and we'll be able to answer those questions here for a question and answer time together as a team. You know, mental illness brings with it many feelings. For me, It's brought feelings of loneliness and isolation. Looking back, I remember that stigma played a big part in marginalizing or pushing me away, this idea of feeling ashamed that I was living with mental illness, and it impacted my family. I remember having to be quiet about it and hush-hush, that we, for whatever reason, weren't able to talk about it. Some of my symptoms when I was not well was I'd sleep for 18 hours a day. I wouldn't shave. My face got real beardish. I wasn't cutting my nails. I wasn't taking a shower. Mental illness, depression, anxiety, whatever it is, just takes over. It takes over in your relationships. It takes over in how you care for yourself. And in a sense, when you can't talk about it because of the stigma, you feel so isolated. And especially during the holidays, where people you feel like should be having fun or should be connecting or should be, all these should be's and expectations, you're sitting here as a family or as a person just struggling in isolation. I don't know if you've ever felt like this. Maybe you could identify with some of these feelings. But I'd like to share a few Bible verses, the Bible verses that helped me get through the valley that I was in. While I still live with schizophrenia, it's controlled at this time, these verses were very powerful. They were life-giving in so many ways. And I'd love to share these with you. The first one, when I was going through the valley, my mom gave me a 3x5 card. And it was Hebrews 13:5. It said this from the Lord: I will never leave you and I will never abandon you. My mom, when she gave me that 3x5 card, I put it up on my dashboard in my car and I taped it there. I got to tell you, I looked at that thing probably 10,000 times. 10,000 times. And the Lord gave me just enough strength, just enough of a reminder daily that I was not alone. In light of the fact that I felt so isolated from my peers, from some of my family, from friends that just didn't understand. They didn't understand what was going on in my soul. Another verse that was very life-giving was Deuteronomy 13:6. It says this: Be strong, take courage, don't be intimidated. Your God is striding ahead of you. He's right there with you. And what I would say about that first part is that this means that God is not only with you, but He'll give you just what you need on your journey as a family, on your journey if you're alone and feeling alone these holidays. It says here, going on in Hebrews 13:6, He will not let you down. He will not leave you. And there's this tension that I've got to acknowledge, this tension that happens inside my soul, and I'm sure this is almost with every person. This tension inside is this: will I accommodate the expectations of others? Maybe during this holiday season that I'm supposed to put my smile on and say, how are you blessed? I'm blessed today. And the reality is, it just brings me stress, feeling like I've got to fit within how people expect me to be during the holidays. Or the other side of this tension is, Lord, I want to live my life before an audience of one. You made me. So do I have this tension of wanting to please people who have these expectations, or do I please the Lord? And this was inside of me, and it's still inside of me. But when I choose to stay with the Lord and direct my heart towards Him, in seminary they call this telos, move my heart towards Him, this brings me security and a level of freedom moving through my illness. It says here in Deuteronomy 31:8, the Lord Himself will lead you and will be with you. He will not fail you or abandon you, so do not lose courage or be afraid. So friends, remember this. Remember that you're not alone. That you're not alone. You're in presence of good company here, in your presence of the Lord who is with you. That God is with you, and remember that He is for you. There are some scripture cards on your table. If you take a look at your table, they're laid out all throughout. There should be enough for everybody here. And these scripture cards have these Bible verses. I would encourage you to go home, cut them into little squares or whatever would fit these cards, and put them in your hope box. If you have a hope box, put them in your hope box. Kay Warren talks about that quite often. You could also put it in your bathroom and tape it up in your bathroom mirror. Put it in your car visor like I did in your car, because there'll be times when you're going to need strength. You're going to need to be reminded that God is with you. You're going to need to remember that he can comfort you and that he loves you. And there's nothing that can stand away or take away from his love for you, either today or in the past or in the future, regardless of what you have done. He is with you. He is with you in the valley, and he's with you when you're getting out of the valley because he loves you. So for our time together today, we will be moving into our discussion time, and you'll see a few questions that will pop up on the projector here in a moment. And if you could just, at your tables and also online, take a few minutes. We'll take about 15 minutes and fill that out. It's a wonderful time of exploration, discovery. Share, if you're here today in tent 3, you can go ahead and share today among your table these discussion questions, and then we will come back in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hope you guys have been enjoying your table time. My name is Laura, and thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. I'm going to share with you a little piece of my story, and just am so thankful for Saddleback Church. It's just been an amazing family that's had tremendous encouragement on me and a support to me throughout some really difficult seasons in my life, including my struggles with anxiety, perfectionism, and being the child of a parent who struggles with alcohol addiction. Ever since my teenage years, I remember family gatherings and holidays creating chaos and stress in the weeks leading up to and after the event. It's only been in the last few years, thanks to Celebrate Recovery, weekly counseling, and wonderful friends, that I've been able to start to identify what those stressors are and begin to address them in a healthy way. My reactions to these stressors would range from minor annoyance to anxiety-inducing panic attacks. First, I put a lot of pressure on myself to create the perfect holiday, which led to setting myself up for a lot of disappointment. I would insist on doing nothing store-bought. Everything had to be handmade. The house had to be spotless and the decor neatly arranged with table assignments. I know. It looked nice on the outside, but there were some heated words, lots of tears, and hair pulling to get there. Second, I am a super planner. I like to know the exact schedule for the day and know exactly what I need to prepare myself for. Third, being newly married, my husband and I had to figure out the blending of family and tradition. In order to avoid conflict and playing favorites, I felt obligated to say yes to whatever was asked of me, which one year led to 3 Thanksgiving meals on one day and a late-night trip for Tums. And while some holiday stories are funny to look back on now, the most unpredictable scenario I needed to prepare myself for was how to manage the day with an intoxicated parent. I have a lot of painful memories surrounding family holidays. Having a drunk parent has looked different at each event, ranging from repeating the same conversation over and over again because they couldn't remember what we talked about, to them passing out in the car, to an ambulance ride to the hospital. Last year, I made some difficult decisions and decided that for my mental health and for the health of my marriage, that we would not be attending family functions with my alcoholic parent. This was a heartbreaking boundary to draw and hard for my family to understand, but I needed to protect my heart from the building resentment and hostility. And as I looked ahead to this holiday season, I thought that I had finally figured it all out. I felt like I had planned for every detail and that nothing could surprise me. Well, I was wrong. There have been a ton of family emergencies this fall that have been so emotionally draining that it got to the point where I just couldn't get out of bed in the morning. I would lie there thinking, what horrible thing is going to happen today? How can I disappoint someone now? I felt alone and defeated. After a good cry, I took a deep breath and asked myself a seemingly simple question. What do I need? For a moment, I let go of all the expectations that others had placed on me and that I had placed on myself. I really looked at what I needed right now in this season. I had been feeling so far from God, telling myself that I had it all under control and that I didn't need his help. I made the conscious choice to be vulnerable and open up to my therapist and trusted friends who encouraged me to take a day off with God and for once sit still and be quiet. And what I heard him say to me was this: be gentle with yourself. I had been given permission to care for myself. I had spent so much time trying to please others and listening to my negative self-talk that I had forgotten to sit still and hear God's whisper. And some of the ways that I chose to be gentle with myself going into this holiday season meant 1, cutting down on social commitments to not burn myself out. 2, bringing store-bought treats to holiday functions instead of homemade. Just put them on a plate. They all look the same. No one knows. Number 3, limiting my exposure to social media because we know that we cannot perform to that level of perfection. Number 4, just going on walks outside and breathing in fresh air. Number 5, listening to uplifting music, podcasts, and TV shows rather than my true crime series that would keep me up all night and ruin my sleep. Number 6, looking at my schedule in attainable bite-sized pieces. I don't need to figure out what I'm doing for Easter next year. I just need to get through a week at a time. And 7, I'm learning to let go of the things that I simply cannot control. But I think the best choice that I made this holiday season was choosing to take as much pressure off this Thanksgiving as possible. So for the first time ever, my husband and I decided to get out of town for a few days to avoid the crazy making, which meant that I did not have to clean the house. We ate out at a restaurant for Thanksgiving dinner, which meant no dirty dishes, and we went to a comedy show where we laughed until we cried. It was truly a much-needed break to exhale before going into the rest of the year. And just because I recognized what I needed to do for myself does not mean that it was an easy choice. I hate feeling like I'm disappointing the people around me, but I realized that saying no to others meant saying yes to myself. Pouring into myself meant that I was able to give my best self to be fully present as a bridesmaid at my brother-in-law's wedding. I could support my stepdad through the sudden death of my uncle. I could hold my mom's hand at her first dual radiation chemo appointment after being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I could help my husband navigate the newness of a job that has us working different schedules. I know I don't do it all perfectly, but I'm thankful for my loving Heavenly Father, a very patient husband, family, and friends who give me grace and encourage me to give myself grace. And in closing, I hope that you can also learn to give yourself grace and be gentle with yourself this holiday season. Thank you.
How about that? There we go. Great. All right. So the holiday season is definitely upon us. This is post-Thanksgiving weekend for everybody here in the United States. Anybody watching from other countries, you're like, what is that Thanksgiving stuff? I know it has something to do with pilgrims and turkeys, but, who knows. But everybody around the world is going to be celebrating Christmas and Advent. It is the biggest holiday, and let's just be really honest, it's an incredibly complicated time of year. It just is. And the mental health team started a couple of months ago thinking about this particular Hope for Mental Health gathering, knowing it would be following Thanksgiving and coming up on Christmas, and made lists on our whiteboard of all the different things that cause stress, all the things, the different emotions that people feel, all the different ways people could be reacting. And our list was really, really long. But we didn't want to just come today and talk about some of the negatives. We're going to talk about some of the hard parts. We're not going to gloss over it and pretend like it's all easy. But we also know that you've come today because you would really like to have some strategies, some intentional ways of making the holidays a little less stressful, maybe not only survive them, but to actually thrive. And that's what we want to spend some time doing. But if we could, if I could walk around and take a poll, or if everybody watching online, if I could take a poll of how you feel about the holidays, and I just asked you one question, which is, how do you feel about the holidays? How do they make you feel? I think I might hear a myriad of responses, a whole variety, all the way from, I'm worried that I'm going to end up spending too much money again this year. I'm not sure I have the emotional energy to meet all of my own and my family's expectations. Some of you might say, I'm actually feeling pretty good about them. It's my favorite time of the year. Somebody else might say, the emphasis on food and eating and parties really puts stress on me. Somebody else might say, I have some special events I'm actually looking forward to. I've worked really hard this year to manage my mental illness, and I hope that I can actually put into practice the things that I've been learning. Some of you might say, I actually don't have any feelings one way or the other, because this season is just like any other season. It's hard. Some of you might say, I'm afraid that I'm going to relapse in some way. I'm going to drink too much. I'm going to use again. I'm going to overuse pain medication to numb my feelings. I'm going to be tempted to self-harm. Some of you would say, the crowds and all the extra noise and the lights and so much emphasis on having a wonderful Christmas are really just too much sometimes. Some of you might say, I just feel so triggered and annoyed by the constant portrayal of happy families, and that's just not the way it is in my family. Some of you might be honest enough to say, I'm actually kind of envious of others who seem to have it all. It just feels like everybody else has a better life than I do. Some of you might say, I am feeling spiritually empty as I approach Christmas. Where is God in my pain? Some of you might be at the other end of the spectrum and actually say, I feel closer to God during Christmas than at any other time of the year, and knowing that He will be with me makes me have courage and strength that I can face anything that might come my way in 2019. Well, regardless of which combination or whether I didn't even say anything that remotely resembles what you're thinking or feeling, I think the point that everybody can agree with is the holidays are complicated. They just are complicated. And so we have prepared a holiday plan. You see it. It's there on your table. If you're watching online, you can download it and go through this together, because we want you to leave today spending some intentional time identifying the holiday stressors that are unique to you. I imagine some of them are the same or similar, but you also might have some unique stress that other people don't have. And we want to think through some positive, helpful tools, how to employ these tools when challenges come. You've already heard from Laura, as she talked about how she is intentionally working to change the narrative of her story, of her experience of the holidays, and the things that she is putting into practice that will help her move through what has characteristically been a time of frustration and pain and even great sadness and disappointment, but into something that is less damaging and wounding to her and actually more healthy. You're also going to get to hear from Kendra Nunez and hear the holiday plan that she's already put together. So I'm going to walk through it with you generally, and then Kendra is going to come and share her holiday plan, and then you're going to have the opportunity to look through it, come up with the things that are stressful, things that maybe you can do differently, things that you are looking forward to, and we'll go this together. But here's the bottom line, I think, of everything that I want to say to you, and Laura alluded to it, and this is it. The main reason, besides the spiritual reason, the main reason you can have hope in this upcoming Christmas season, besides, as I said, the fact that Jesus Christ came into the world, there's a deep spiritual meaning. But aside from that, and a part of that, is that if you can begin to grasp the idea that you can control the controllables in your life and leave the uncontrollables to God, that will immediately put you in a place and a framework of more peace in your mind and in your heart. The reality is there is so much about your life in general, about the holidays specifically, that you and I cannot control. You and I cannot control whether we have a loved one who has a mental illness or whether you live with a mental illness. Those are not controllable factors. It simply is. You and I don't necessarily get to control the history of our life up to this point. We don't get to control the things that have happened to us, maybe the pain that has come our way, the wounds that we have suffered, the stigma that we've experienced, the people who've let us down. Those are not things that we can control. We can't control the seasons, and some of you really react. Your body reacts to the change in seasons. Here in California, where time changes and it gets darker sooner, it can really throw off your body rhythm. And I can't do anything about that. That is not in my control or yours, but it's something that we live with. And we don't get to have a whole lot of control over all the way that the world around us celebrates Christmas. We don't really get to change the fact that every mall has been decorated since August, that Lowe's has been selling Christmas ornaments since September, that Christmas candy was out there before Halloween candy was. Those are things not within our control. So there are 1,000 things that are not in our control as we think about the holidays and how to get through them. But the good news is there is so much that is within our control. There are things that you and I can think through, can meditate on, can be deliberate about, and make some choices for ourselves that will make the holidays much less stressful and much, maybe even healthier and happier than you would even imagine at this point. So, bottom line, control the controllables and leave the uncontrollables to God. You have options, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, are the options and the choices that you get to have. So the first is, you've got your holiday plan in front of you. You might take the blank one and just look at it. You could probably jot some notes on it if you want to, or you can wait and do it during the table time. But let's just start with the first thing on our holiday plan, which is stress or stressors. And this is where there's a space there on the holiday plan for you to write down the people and the places or the circumstances that you already know ahead of time are likely to come into your life that are going to add to stress in your life. This can be, you can be very specific and put people by name if you're brave enough to do that, or put initials or nicknames, so that nobody else knows what you're talking about. Or it could be the general category of, my finances. I'm worried that I'm going to spend too much, and that's a stress that I feel. Or it could be, a category of just relational brokenness. There's some relationships in your life that are broken all the time, but at the holidays, it just is kind of amplified because you're going to see them more often, or at least you'll feel the pressure to see them. And then maybe a stress of, as Laura talked about, the expectations of other people. Maybe you don't have such high expectations, but you feel the weight of everybody else's expectations of how you should act, how you should perform, what gifts you should buy, how much you should participate. So those are stressors that, people, places, circumstances that are just automatically going to come your way. And so then that leads us to ask another question, which is, well, what are my options? What can I do about some of those stressors that are going to come into my life? I know they're coming. Maybe they're already present. Maybe just because of Thanksgiving, you already encountered some of them. But there's even more ahead. So what are some of the options? Well, a good question, and Laura mentioned this as well, are what are some of the boundaries that you can put in place around yourself, around your finances? For instance, I know that for some folks, there is this terrible expectation to buy extravagant gifts, to buy lavishly, because there are people you love in your life, and you want to give gifts, and there's a very natural inclination in us to want to give. And maybe you feel on top of that people in your life expect you to also spend a certain amount of money. And that is painful because maybe you really don't have a lot to spend this year. Maybe it's a pretty tight year, or maybe it's been a tight year for a while, or maybe it's just the fact that, once you really let your guard down, man, you can spend and spend and spend, and then you get yourself in such deep trouble, which then adds to your stress, adds to the pressure, adds to your sense of things being out of control. What if there are some boundaries that you could set around that, of maybe a certain amount that you have agree in your head, I could spend this amount, and I know if I spent any more than that, I would be creating such pressure for myself. So setting a boundary and a limitation in a way that's actually good or healthy for you. Or like, what if you say, I'm going to give homemade gifts this year. Maybe this is the year that, you're going to get creative and you're going to find some way to give something that is more simple, that reflects your love, and not give in to that pressure of giving more than you can. Or how about on the relational boundaries that you might need to set? Laura talked about, for her, there was a relational boundary that she needed to set, that to be with an alcoholic parent on a holiday was actually continuing to damage her. And so she set a boundary of, I know I can't be with that parent in this situation. Those are really hard. In some ways, maybe even harder than financial boundaries, setting those relational boundaries. But if you step back and take a look at maybe the way things have gone year after year after year, and how you end up after the holidays either more depressed or more anxious or more down on yourself or more hopeless or more wounded, are more traumatized than you were even before then, maybe if you can take a step back and say, it probably would be better for me if I tried to either be with those people or that group of family in this setting rather than this setting. It takes tremendous courage to set those kind of boundaries. But to get through them, to get through in a healthier way, you may need to set some boundaries. Like, I can go to Aunt Sue's house, but I can't go to Grandma's house. And at Aunt Sue's house, I feel like there's things that can be controlled and managed there. It's safe. But over there at Grandma's, that is not a good place for me to be. And so set some boundaries around yourself. And even maybe go as far as to say, I can't be with my family at Christmas, but I can be with this group of friends. So you have options there around the stressors that come naturally with Christmas. Let's talk about safe people, because that kind of leads into that next category of your holiday plan. Ask yourself the question, who is it that I can count on in difficult times? Who are the safe people in my life who will listen to what I have to say, who guard my feelings, who guard my heart, who honor the fact that this may be stressful for me, who honor my story and don't trample over it? Who are the people that I can count on to help me when I'm feeling down or triggered or feeling anxious? Our tendency, honestly, we've talked about this a lot, but I think it's pretty well known that when we're feeling down or discouraged or anxious or whatever it is we're feeling, we isolate. It's just what we do. Most of us isolate. We pull within ourselves. We stay in our room. We stay in our house. We stop going to being with friends. We, particularly at the holidays, may find it just so difficult. And instead of responding to invitations that we've been given to, hey, let's go to a movie or let's go to this party, we tend to isolate. And a choice you can make there, one of the options, is to actually push past the isolation and reach out to some of those safe people that you know historically have been there for you and you can count on to be there for you in the future. So some options around safe people and safe places. Not only who are the people that you can reach out to, but I would encourage you to come to church every weekend. As a safe place. Again, in that isolation, some people stop coming to church because there's the emphasis on the holidays, and that starts to feel painful. But church is, in general, a safe place. There are going to be kind people, people who will give you a hug, people where you can feel a part of a crowd, even though you maybe don't know everybody who's there. But going to church on a weekend during the holidays can actually bolster your sagging emotions. This would be the time to stay connected with your small group, with a support group if you're a part of one, to go to Celebrate Recovery. Maybe you've never gone to Celebrate ever, but this would be the time that you would go for the first time. They are available every Friday night, every Friday throughout the year. They don't break for anything because they understand the power of community and connection and being there for each other. If you haven't gone to CR, maybe it's an AA group that you've been to before. Go again. The point is, schedule an extra therapy, be in an online group, reach out to safe people rather than isolating in maybe the loneliness or the sadness that you're feeling during the holidays. There are a couple of websites that I would really recommend too. One is called themighty.com. Another is psychcentral.com. And they have all sorts of resources on there, articles, tips for getting through the holidays. Another one is NAMI.org /holiday blues. They have some good articles there. So if you're thinking, okay, I've heard what you said, but I need to be able to read stuff at home. I need to be able to read and get some stuff on a daily basis. Those three sites I really recommend as having some good resources for safe people and places. Then let's talk about self-care. Because self-care, what we're talking about here are being aware, spending some time thinking about what are the things that cause you to burn out during the holidays, cause you to feel exhausted, feel drained, feel emotionally empty, and list those. And that way you're not caught unaware when you experience some of those feelings. Maybe if you know ahead of time, well, when I do this, this, and this, it always leaves me feeling burned out. When I participate in this, this, and this, and this, I feel so empty. I feel so drained, so like my energy is just gone. If you know that ahead of time, it will help you be aware of it, maybe choose not to do those things or to limit those things. But if you don't spend the time thinking about it, putting it down on a piece of paper, listing it, you're more likely to just be caught completely off guard, and suddenly you find yourself struggling. You find yourself feeling down. You find yourself feeling so anxious, so empty, and like you don't even have the energy to get out of bed, as Laura was talking about. And yet, if you'll spend a little time here, you might can catch some of those things before they happen. So on some options on self-care, again, make a positive list of all the things you can possibly remotely think of that restore pleasure, that give you pleasure, that give you enjoyment, that restore some energy, that make you feel like you've got some enthusiasm for life and for the holidays. Because honestly, well, let me just be honest here. When I say look for things that comfort you and bring you pleasure, I know that for many of us that is an open door to pursuing unhealthy approaches. Because sometimes what has been our go-to comfort up to this point or in the past has been drinking too much. Maybe it's been something like watching porn. Maybe it's eating too much. Maybe it's eating too little. Maybe it's numbing your pain with pain medication. I mean, there's so many different ways. Maybe it's going online and shopping until your credit card is completely, in fact, all your credit cards are maxed out. There are ways that many of us have tried to soothe and comfort ourselves when we're feeling stressed. And we all know, if we're honest, we all know that those ways of comforting and offering ourselves solace may help in the moment. They may or may not, but they may actually help in the moment. But then they don't help us long term. They don't help us be who we want to be. They don't help us be the kind of parents or husband or wife or friend or coworker or employee. They don't help us be who we want really to be inside of us. And so when I talk about self-care, I'm asking you to be honest enough to maybe look at the strategies and the places of comfort and solace that you've gone to over and over and over when you're hurting, when you're feeling stressed, and recognize them as being unhealthy and unhelpful for you. And instead, use this place on your holiday plan to come up with things that would actually be good for you, from all the way from a walk, a bike ride, baking something, listening to music, meditating, writing in your journal, going to the beach, taking a look at the Christmas lights, reading, watching your favorite movie, do some yoga, clean out a closet or your garage. Some people actually find pleasure in cleaning out garages and things. I mean, tinker with your car, play with your dog, stay on your medication. What an important decision you could make of self-care this season would be to stay on your medication. Your family will thank you. You will thank you. Everyone around you will thank you as you see it as a way of loving yourself. So find some healthy ways, nurturing ways to care for your soul and your emotions. Then the fourth thing there on your holiday plan is serve. And that might seem like a strange part of a holiday plan, because we've been talking about ways that you can take care of yourself, ways that you can get through hard conversations or being with people that trigger you, or the external stresses of the holidays. And why would serve be on here? But I'll tell you this, one of the most forgotten ways to help yourself is to help someone else. It just is. We are shaped to serve others, and most of the time we gain more than we give when we're serving somebody else. We know that Jesus told us that it's better to give and to receive. That's such a popular saying of his. People know that one. And he also, we're told throughout Scripture to give extravagantly. It would be really easy to focus on that give extravagantly and think that it's the amount, either of presents or the amount that you donate or the amount of time that you give in serving somebody else, when really it's all about the heart. It is not so much the amount that you give somebody financially. It's not so much the amount of time you give. It's not so much the amount of energy as it is the heart condition. And if you give from a place of love, you're probably familiar with Mother Teresa's quote that not all of us can do great things, but what? We can all do small things with great love. And so as you're thinking of a holiday plan and you're trying to focus on ways to get through it, to survive, and more than survive, actually thrive, I'm going to suggest to you that looking for a way to serve other people at some way, some form during this holiday time will actually grow your own soul, will help you with your own feelings of sadness and depression and anxiety. There's something beautiful happens on the inside of us when we reach beyond ourselves in a small way. It does not have to be an extravagant way. It does not have to be a gigantic way. It can be so small, but if it is done with great love, it can change the life of somebody else and change ourselves. There's a gal from Yale University School of Medicine, Emily Ansell. She did a study, and she said this: stressful days usually lead us to have a worse mood and poorer mental health. But our findings suggest that if we do small things for others, such as holding a door open for someone, we won't feel as poorly on stressful days. She says, think about giving directions, asking someone if they need help, or simply holding the elevator door open for somebody else. She said it may actually end up helping you feel just a little bit better. And so we want to just suggest a few ways that you can give back during this holiday season. There's some ways that you can help here at Saddleback Church on a general ongoing basis, but there's also going to be some special things that from all the way from giving, buying small presents, wrapping them for children whose parents are incarcerated, to helping at our food pantry and the Peace Center. But listen, you don't have to do anything even outside of your own neighborhood. This gal from Yale was talking about simply, basically, smile at somebody. Hold the door open for somebody else. Pick up somebody's, they're in the grocery store and they drop the bag of marshmallows for the yams. So bend over and pick up the bag of marshmallows for somebody else instead of just walking by. I mean, small things can help you in how you're going to feel about yourself and get through the holidays. There's also peace relief. I want to make sure I mention that. Many of you, I mean, all of us here in California know the terrible fires that have just happened in our state. And there are peace relief. There are teams going to help in those devastated areas. There's a way you can give online. You can pray. You can be a part of helping people here, even in our state, who are struggling after they have truly lost everything. And then the last thing on the plan that I would suggest to you is to write down something to look forward to. One of the hallmarks of hope, one of the ways that you know that people still have hope, is that they have things that they're looking forward to. And so you may be honest enough to say, I don't really have a lot that I'm looking forward to right now. And that would be like taking your temperature, your emotional temperature, and that would be a sign to those who love you and caring for you that you're feeling particularly down. Because if there isn't something to hold on to, if there isn't something to look forward to, then we know that hope is dissipating. And so one of the ways that we can even build hope is to think through what are some things that I might look forward to. That maybe on a good day I could say, well, I'm looking forward to this, or I'm looking forward to that. Because this is a way to make that tiny little green seed of hope begin to sprout in your heart. So I want you to listen to Kendra. Kendra Nunes, has been in Saddleback for a very long time, and Kendra is one of those people who's extremely open about her own life and her struggles, and it has been just a joy to watch Kendra grow as a Christian, as a Christ follower, as a woman, as a mom and a wife, and a servant of Jesus. So would you welcome Kendra?
Hi. Oh, okay, you can hear me. I hope everybody's doing great today. I'm excited to share about what I'm hoping will be my holiday plan. I try really hard to take one day at a time, wake up and not try and think about a week ahead of time. But one of the stressors that I have an issue with is crowds. I went to Kohl's and Black Friday, and there were a ton of people, and I was sweating, and I needed to get out. I need to know where my stressors are and what I can and what I can't do. Another stressor is grieving. My dad died earlier this year, and so I need to know that anything that's going to remind me about my dad, or that I'm going to think about maybe too much, that might be a little bit have discomfort there. Another stressor is my husband's family. There's some brokenness there. So I need to make sure that we have boundaries, that I pay attention to how he's feeling and not just how I'm feeling about it. Some of the options for boundaries that I put in place, I think I realized that I can only control what I do. I can't control other people's emotions. I can't control their actions. So I just need to understand that if I'm in that type of situation, that I can only control how I react, not how somebody else is going to react. Knowing that grieving is okay, that if I cry, it's okay, no matter where I'm at. That was one of the issues that I had for a while, is crying at a grocery store or at a commercial or something like that. I always thought that that was wrong, but I gave myself the okay to be able to do that. I put breathing. What are my options for boundaries? The one of them I put was breathing. And it sounds funny, but that's just, sometimes I don't remember to breathe. And when I have anxiety, I don't remember to breathe. So I put wake up and know that I'm loved, and pushing past that, any kind of negative feelings that I'm feeling when I wake up. Safe people. I didn't put down people's names, which is okay. A few of them are in this room that I trust with my life, and know that if I had an issue, having a bad day, anything, I didn't have to necessarily call. I could just text and say, hey, can you pray for me? I'm having a cruddy day. It took me some time to understand what safe people were. For me, I thought that meant people that were going to be in my life every day, excuse me, and that I had to talk to every day. But there's some people that I might not even see for a couple months, but know that if I text them, that they would be there for me. I had to push past the I don't want to bother them. Places I can go for more support. I do go to Celebrate Recovery. I am a leader there, and I love it. I love being able to, yay. Sorry, someone was saying yay back there. I can be myself there, and I can be around other people that understand how I'm feeling. I don't know about you. I can only speak about myself, that I have bipolar and depression. So if I have some kind of an issue, there might be friends or family members that don't understand. And so if I go to Celebrate Recovery, I know I'm around people that at least get a little bit of it. I know that Kay mentioned The Mighty, one of the websites. I love that website. It's great. It's encouraging. You can get it every day on your email. These people that you get emails from, they are real. They are real people that struggle with the same things. I struggle with self-harm, and I never thought I'd meet so many people that understood what that struggle was. But The Mighty is amazing. Celebrate Recovery does go Monday through Friday at all different campuses. So for me, I didn't have the excuse to say, well, they don't have it tonight. I'm not going to go. I needed to go so I could feel, just feel safe, and it was a place for me to get more support. Okay, self-care. I think one of the things that that causes me burnout is I have body dysmorphic. So it basically means that I hate looking in the mirror, that I don't have mirrors at home, stuff like that. I don't know if that sounds funny, but it kind of causes me burnout because during holiday seasons, you're getting invited more places, you're, going to go other places, and then I start stressing out, well, what am I going to wear? And then my closet is going out of control, and my husband is so precious, he just stands there and stares at me. I think another thing is when I wake up and I immediately start to think about all the things that I have to do. But then I think, are they things that I have to do? Or are there things that I think people think I have to do? I hope that made sense. The last few months, what would cause me some kind of burnout is there were just a couple times that when I woke up, I thought, do I really want to be awake right now? Or did I not want to wake up? So that has caused a little bit of burnout, and I would say that was the holidays just because there are past years where I've thought that. Things that rejuvenate me. I love Christmas lights. I'm like that kid that, wants to look in the newspaper and see where all the Christmas lights are. I love coffee with friends. Not just to talk about me, but to hear about them and hear about their lives and what God's doing in their lives. I love to walk. Okay, this sounds kind of funny, but smiling rejuvenates me. I love to smile at people. Maybe it's a nervous smile. I don't know. I never really thought much about it. But to serve, what are ways I can give back? The food pantry. If you don't go here to Saddleback Church, they have a food pantry. And it's an amazing opportunity to meet other people and serve and help other people. And also, no matter what I'm going through, I know I'm not alone helping at the food pantry. One of my love languages is to give. I love to give to other people. So any way that I can to serve. Saddleback has, again, if you go here to Saddleback Church, they have, I think, 12 different Christmas services this year. And just to be able to serve there is something I look forward to. Okay, last one. What are some experiences, people, or activities you look forward to? So, I guess you can say a few months ago, gosh dang it, I kept telling myself not to cry when I came up here. Thank you. I wasn't really looking forward to the holidays. I shared that there were a couple days where I woke up and I didn't want to wake up. So I really had to think about what I was going to look forward to. And I look forward to seeing my dad in heaven. And no, that's not look forward to this holiday season. Lord willing, I will still be here. But I think the bottom line for me, if I can give anything out of this whole thing, is just that I look forward to being with people and to open the door for somebody. Or if somebody drops something, my husband always makes fun of me. I'm the first one that'll run across the street and help somebody. I'm pretty sure that's it. And I think I kind of talked past my time. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Kendra. Thank you so much. Kendra is real and honest, and I hope that this is a side note, but just to be able to say, as Kendra did, that there have been moments this year where I wasn't sure I wanted to even be here, if I wanted to be alive, if I wanted to keep living, and this is a safe place where you can say that. and people aren't going to freak out and, jump all over you, and you're going to be heard, you're going to be listened, you're going to be cared for. And I love that Kendra knows that she can say really what's in her heart, and she's going to be met with love and acceptance and a lot of big hugs. There just is no such thing as a stress-free holiday. That only exists on Hallmark Movie Channel and maybe on some of those extravagant cooking shows where, everything is perfect. But really what we wanted to say today is that by thinking through of some of the things that you can control in your life in these upcoming weeks, putting some safeguards in place, that maybe some of those uncontrollables will not be as problematic. Maybe they won't tank you. Maybe they won't be as traumatizing. Maybe they won't cause you to lose some of the hard-won ground that you've made in your own sense of well-being this year, and might even yield greater resilience in you, and actually that this season might be a time in which you thrive. So I'm going to pray for you, and then we're going to spend about 15 minutes, I think it is, on letting you go through your holiday plan and then sharing as much of it as you feel comfortable with the other people at your table. And if you're online, you've got your holiday plan. You can go through it and think of people to share it with if you're watching this on your own. So let me pray for you. Father, it just blows my mind that you let me be here with this group of people today. People who are honest and authentic in their real lives. I pray that as we now talk among ourselves here at these tables, that each person will feel like that this is a safe place where their doubts or confusion or hurt or pain or wound or questions will be met with receptivity, met with love, met with acceptance and care. I thank you that you really do care how we go through this holiday season, that you're not just interested in all the big things and the lights and the noise and the sound, but that you care for each of us as individual men and women. You know our hearts, you know our journey, you know our stories. We're not strangers to you, even though sometimes we feel estranged from you. To know that you came looking for us, that you sent your son Jesus into the world so that we never had to walk a single day alone, is probably the most comforting thing I can think of. So bless this time of sharing, of thinking through, and may at the end of this time people leave with a little bit more hope than they had when they came in, believing that that they've got a handle on some of the hard things that might be ahead, but that there are things to look forward to and hope is still present. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. So please feel free to talk among your table, and then we'll come back and do Q&A together.
Hey, check, check. Check, check, check. Check, check, check. Tss. Check. Check, check, check. Check one. check.
Okay, would you like these?
No, I have the ones that I'm going to use.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay, like it. Okay. Go ahead, Kendra. My spot.
Hello, everybody. We're back. We're back from your group time, and I know you're probably not finished. There's so much that you could talk about, and I hope that whatever progress you've made in coming out with writing out your plan, and then if you didn't get to finish it, that you'll do that at home and share it maybe with somebody else. I think there's a lot of power in sharing what you've written down with maybe one of the safe people on your list. And when I say to help with not accountability like, oh man, you could do this really wrong and somebody has to hold you accountable, but just because somebody else can be a reminder to you of, you know what, I remember we talked about, you were mentioning that was going to be a stress for you and you were going to maybe try to do X, Y, Z. So somebody else can be an encouragement to you in actually operating your holiday plan. So we're going to take some questions, some that have come in, some online and some in person. Miss Kendra and Mr. David and I are going to go through some of these. There's a ginormous stack here, so we're not going to get through them all, but we'll go through some of them. So I'll just do them in random order here. Okay, so movies, social media posts, and Christmas cards make it seem like this is the most wonderful time of the year for everyone but me. Is it true that the holidays are the most wonderful time? And if so, why aren't they for me? That's a pretty honest question.
Yeah.
Either of you want to jump into that one at all?
I would say that the media and social media especially tries to portray this happy, happy holiday type of perspective. But all of us are unique. We all come with our different stories, especially as it relates to mental illness. If you're a family member or person living with, our stories are very unique in a sense that there's a lot of pain. And so we don't want to deny that pain. We just want to acknowledge. We want to acknowledge that, yes, there is suffering because we live in a broken world. Is it all one-sided, all good or all bad? Most often, Kay has talked about this, it's like on a train track. You have some things that are going great in your life, and you have some things that are challenges as well that include your pain. So.
Anything to add to that, Kendra?
No.
Okay.
That was great.
Yeah, I think that is, I remember the first Christmas after my son passed away. Those of you, I think, probably know, but anybody who doesn't know, my son died by suicide 5.5 years ago after 20-plus years of living with serious mental illness. And that first Christmas after he passed away, when I started getting Christmas cards, they actually made me angry because most of them were, people's happy, I call them happy, sappy families. They were people looking their best. Everybody's hair's combed perfectly. They've got a gorgeous scene, to take this wonderful holiday photograph. And too often now in our culture, we don't even write messages on our cards. We just let Costco print our name, on the bottom of that pre-done picture, and then we send it out. And I realized in my logical mind that the people who sent me cards were thinking of me, care for me. I wouldn't be on the Christmas list otherwise, but it felt so cold that what I got was somebody's perfect family coming into my house where we were grief-stricken, and most of the people didn't even sign their name to the card or acknowledge the fact that we were in grief. And so I really can remember, particularly that first Christmas, thinking, I kept hearing that song, it's the most wonderful time of the year. But it was not the most wonderful time of the year for us. It was actually the worst possible time of the year. And I think that sometimes when we're in grief or we're living in a really hard time or struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts or whatever it is, that repeated thing, it's the most wonderful time of the year, we could fill it in, well, it's the most wonderful time of the year unless you're really in financial trouble, unless you're really depressed, unless you're in grief, unless you're struggling. And you can start to feel really alone. And that truly everybody else is, it's okay, that everybody else is, I'll get to them eventually, that everybody else is having a great time except for you. And of course the reality is behind all those beautiful Christmas cards that people have sent are real families with real struggles, some of them pretty intense and pretty horrific. And so that there's the logic of, well, I know that everybody is not perfect, I know that, but it doesn't help emotionally. And so emotionally for me, my strategy, and I meant to mention this, because I live still in grief. Christmas is a very difficult time for me and our family, is I just don't open Christmas cards until the new year. My strategy, I put them in a beautiful box. It has a bow on it. I'm not Scrooge. I'm not mad at the world. I put them in this lovely box. And after the new year, when emotion has died down, when it's not in the intensity of the holiday period, then I open my Christmas cards. I don't rip them to shreds as I did the first couple of years. I'm not kidding you, I did. So if you sent me a card and it didn't say anything acknowledging the fact that we had lost our son, just know I ripped it and threw it away. Not kidding. So I don't do that. I can look at them and accept them as what they are, as people's gestures of love and kindness. But I think really what I'm trying to say is that holidays can be hard. And so don't feel burdened or alone that everybody else is having a wonderful time except you, because it's just not true. And what if we actually went through the holiday season with much more of an acknowledgement of, you know what, life is hard. Life is hard. Let's be kind to each other. Let's give each other grace in this season. Let's not expect everybody to be happy, sappy, flappy, clappy, okay? It's okay to not feel that way all the time. Somebody did ask about grief once somewhere in that pile of cards that just fell off my lap is questions similar to that of what do you do in, when Christmas includes a lot of grief. One of the things that I have learned, and, maybe you understand some of that as you've lost, that's yours to tell, but anyway, you understand loss a lot, and I know you've had your own stories of loss, David, but it's that when you can, you will. So in the holiday season, if you're going through grief and you think, I don't know that I ever want to decorate again, I don't know that I can, it's too painful, I don't know that I ever want to go to that place again because it's such a reminder of grief and loss. And just in that gentleness of yourself to just know that when you can, you will. That as your heart heals, not gets over, but as your heart begins to heal, as you move through the seasons and the intensity may dial down a little bit, there's some things that maybe you can't do right now, but you'll be able to do at another time. And so be patient with each other and others in grief. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. So I lost a daughter years ago, and so I felt different about Christmas because if I didn't have something that memorialized her in my house, whether it be a candle or a picture or anything, I felt like I was forgetting her. And if I didn't go to the cemetery, on certain days and stuff like that, I felt like I wasn't a mommy anymore. I felt like I wasn't doing the right thing. But it did get a little different. It did get a little better. But that doesn't mean there's still not those hard days that I go through on the Christmas season. I wish that she was here, and if someone else has lost a loved one, I'm sure that you wish that they were with you too. My only thing is to give yourself grace again to grieve. No one is looking at me waiting for something to happen. I choose on how I memorialize or how I remember her and what I'm going to do. And I think I give myself a hard time, but I love Christmas. But yeah, there's that little part of me that hurts. And now since it's the first Christmas without my son, or my dad, sorry. Are you okay?
There's nothing worse than coughing into a microphone, isn't there?
I tried to cover it.
I know. But sorry. It's the first Christmas without my dad, so there's grieving times too there. But yeah.
And if I could just add to the grief, Grief comes in many different forms. It's not just the loss of someone, but it could also come in the form of the loss of identity or the loss of a relationship because a mental illness has taken over the family. Or it can come in the loss of your childhood and your innocence. It could be finances, it could be almost anything, your job. And so, as Kendra was talking about, be patient with yourself, be gracious to yourself, allow yourself to grieve the loss. Holidays for many can be very triggering of pain, and so it's okay to allow yourself in a safe place to come and grieve that loss with safe people, as Kay had shared earlier, that is also on the plan as we look at this topic of grief. So
I just want to add to that too. I realized when I picked up my questions are completely out of order now, so who knows what's going to happen. But I remember one of the questions that was in here, somebody talked about losing somebody and then even feeling guilty about having fun in the holidays. And I would just say to you that that's just part of grief. Guilt comes with it, and almost everybody who's lost somebody dear to them starts to feel guilt at some point when their heart revives enough to experience anything of joy and pleasure, and there is that sense of, oh my gosh, I must not have loved this person if I can feel pleasure, if I can feel happy, if I'm looking forward to something. And I would just say that is a common grief experience, and you can let that go. Really, if your heart is ready to experience something of joy and pleasure, please do. It's good. It's a sign of, it's actually a really good sign of healing and hope in your heart. So please don't, whoever who is feeling that way, if you're watching on, please do not feel guilt at finding pleasure in life and joy and experiences again. That is actually a really, really good thing. One of the questions I saw in here was around eating. And someone who has disordered eating, that the holidays can just be so difficult, and maybe some strategies for how do you handle all the different parties and places where food is king, at Christmas.
Oh, so that's hard. I can't mask it and say it's going to be real easy. I don't have this perfect plan. It is hard. One of the ideas that is to bring your own food. Eat a good breakfast before you go. And what I mean by bringing your own food is if there's maybe, if you love a particular food and it's there and you're afraid you're going to eat too much of it, maybe have something of your own, a sandwich. And I know it's hard to understand that if there's not a food issue that you're struggling with, but it's really those boundaries and how to self-care. It's those two mixed together. So how are you going to prepare for the day and not think too much? I can't think too much about it, but I do want to be prepared.
Have a plan.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes, have a plan and not be afraid to have that plan, to give yourself acceptance, to be able to have that plan, to know that that's part of self-care.
Anything you want to say about that, David?
I just touch on this real quickly. With disordered eating, oftentimes there are triggers, as you know, and it's a reminder of some of the pain or some of the fear that's deep within. And to be aware of those triggers, and if you need to create a boundary for yourself, the Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself, and there's this that implies a healthy sense of taking care of yourself. If you don't feel like you can take care of yourself in that way, being in a triggered situation, it's okay to have a boundary there and think of other alternatives. So.
Okay, great. Somebody was asking about tips for traveling during the holidays. Someone said, I'm flying before and after the holidays, and I don't want it to trigger symptoms. And without knowing exactly what that is, I mean, I'm a fearful flyer. Anybody else a fearful flyer? Thank you. I get on the plane and think I'm the only one that's terrified, but I know there have to be a few others. I only fly because I refuse to let fear keep me from doing things in life. But believe me, I do business with God every time I get on a plane. I review my faith in Jesus, my security in my salvation, and I'm only half kidding. I really, really, really don't like to fly. So I have great empathy for this person, and I'll just give you some of my tips, and you guys maybe can throw some in there too. I don't even realize how anxious I am until they close that door, and then it's just like I'm sweating bullets. But I have certain songs that I play. Like on my phone, I've got some songs. They're my flying songs. And I play them. I may be listening to something else until that plane takes off. But when that plane takes off, I have my flying song. I'm singing it in my head. You know, some of this stuff can get into like talismans. We're a little superstitious. I have to sing my flying song or the plane won't take off right. But it's really more than that. It's just I do it. And the more I do it, the more comfortable I am. But if there's a little bit of time in between flights, the clock restarts and I go back to that place of getting on and feeling anxious. What am I going to do? What song am I going to sing? Jesus, I love you. Jesus, be with me. Please let me pass out if the plane goes down so that I don't know that I'm dying. It's real, and so I really get that. But you might not be talking about the flying itself, but it might trigger other things, because just the anxiety around flying can trigger other anxiety-producing patterns. What would you say, sir? Mr. LMFT, licensed social worker, professional person?
I could give a tip or two. What I would say is be aware of your body, meaning if you're starting to tense up, if your chest is starting to feel heavy, there's some breathing exercises that you can do. They're natural to do. Take a big, deep breath, hold it in, especially when you're taking off or when the anxiety comes, pay attention to your body. You can close your eyes. I feel my chest tightening up, my shoulders getting tight and increasing. That means it's time to really begin to try these techniques. There's nothing magical about them. It really is just some breathing exercises that help you get through that. There's a lot online that you could find about the different types of exercises you can do. But be aware of what your body's telling you. And in that way, also for me, would be prayer whenever I start to feel anxious. Prayer is very centering for me. It's very peaceful for me. Some people like to read the Bible or verses on anxiety. But there's a lot of different ways you can cope with it. But just be aware, and this applies not just to the airport or flying. If you have anxiety in general, these are things that you can do as well to manage and cope in your journey too.
I really believe in the breathing thing. You mentioned breathing as well.
Yeah.
Because when we're anxious, a lot of times our breath is like right here. It's right up here in your chest. And that just increases it. So like for me, flying, I really do have learned how to focus on breathing. Yeah. So that, I close my eyes, I take some deep breaths and then breathe them out from, the abdomen rather than from the chest, and focus on that rather than on any of the other body sensations that I'm feeling. And it does help.
I was just going to say you and I probably shouldn't fly together.
Yeah, good to know. If you're an anxious flyer, do not fly with me, because I don't want you. I want people who are like solid, never get bothered by any of the turbulence or any of that stuff.
I am a very fearful flyer as well. That's why I was saying that. And when I was laughing, I definitely wasn't laughing at you, but with you.
But that's okay.
Oh no, And the one thing I always hear people say, I'm not sure if this has been told to you before, but well, you know where you're going
please.
And I'm like,
yes, I know where I'm going.
Know, but that
doesn't. But I don't want to go today.
that's my thing.
I had some things I wanted to do before.
Yeah, that's it. So
I don't. Closet I need to clean.
Before
everybody goes through my stuff.
That you think of that is hilarious. But no, huge. My husband knows I cry weeks before. I wish I had great.
Okay, any of you fear of flying people can talk to us afterwards, and we'll commiserate to each other. Okay, so moving on past that one. So somebody said, do you think you can manage moderate bipolar and eating disorders without medication? So I'm going to say follow your medical professional's advice on that one. I don't think that's a question that anybody else can answer for you. That's a conversation between you and your medical healthcare professional. Please don't decide that you're going to be the one who tinkers with it all yourself. Please talk to your physician, to your psychiatrist, and make sure that you are following what he or she says. And I think we'll do one more. Poor David. It's okay, David. It's totally fine. Okay, so just one more question. Being in places where past hurt happened is triggering. I can't avoid these places at the holidays. What do I do? So you've got somewhere you feel like you've got to be. It's a place that's very triggering to you. But besides or in addition to what we've said already about that, anything you would add? How to get through some of those tough moments? Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
It's flu season. It's okay.
Yes.
I need to be honest about my feelings if I'm going to be in a place that's triggering for me. My husband, I know I mention him a lot, but he's my best friend, and so I am very honest, and I make sure if he's not there and someone else is there and it's triggering, that I'm honest about those feelings, because if I keep them inside, then they're going to explode. And that's something that I learned when I was diagnosed with bipolar, was I was keeping so much stuff inside that it came out in different areas of my life. So for me, I just need to be honest about those things before they happen, if I'm anxious and however I feel.
Will your voice allow you to
I know.
I
sing?
think I've lost my voice.
You think you've lost your voice? Okay, I'm so sorry, Dave. We will pray for you. It's totally fine. All right, well, I think, like I said, there's this huge deck here, but for time, I think we will call that a day on the questions. We're going to talk, just as we close here, about some, again, upcoming events. You were going to do that, and you're probably not able to do that. All right, so you have a list of the things.
Yeah.
We'll get your notes, okay, so that I know how to. Perfect.
Just at the bottom.
Thank you, David. All right, so everybody, please register for the Christmas celebration on December 12th. It's going to be here. We're going to have dinner for you. It's free. Chip, raise your hand. This amazing man is our caterer, and we're going to have soups and cornbread and chili and all this great stuff at 6:30. It is not a program like this. It's more of worship. Rick Muchow is going to lead us in some time of worship and celebration, and I know you're excited about that. And so it's really just a fun, sweet time, not a real long time, but a time just to be together at 6:30 on the 12th, to register. And if you're interested in volunteering, Kathleen is in the back of the room waving at us. If you'd love to volunteer, these events take a little bit of effort and time, people setting up, taking down, being available at our book table. If you'd love to volunteer, we'd love to have you. And there is a prayer team also at the back. If you could you just need somebody to put their arm around you and pray with you today, we'd love to do that for you. Thank you for joining us here in Lake Forest and online. And let me pray for us, and then we'll dismiss. God, we are, again, just so grateful for an opportunity to come together, to talk, to ask questions, to laugh together, to cry together, pray together, to be honest about our lives, and honest about where we are missing out on hope in our lives and where hope is actually growing. So I pray a blessing on these friends here in the room and those who've joined us online. And I pray that this holiday season will actually surprise us in good ways, that there are unexpected good things ahead for us, and that we will end this period of holidays of December 2018 with more hope, more joy, more feelings of being able to control the controllables in our lives, and that there will just be some surprising things that will always be memorable. And I pray this blessing on my friends in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks so much for being here today.